Coming up, why South Korea's election today could mean even more of this.
Oppan Gangnam Style.
But first, not much doubt about the digit of the day, $1.53 billion. That is how much UBS is paying to settle charges that it rigged yen LIBOR rates. We're at €15.16 at the start of trade right now for UBS. We'll take a closer look at that in a sec with Brenda Kelly. Also today, Greek public sector workers striking in protest at austerity and planned layoffs. The stoppage is the latest in a series of 24-hour strikes, but it comes after a rare bit of good news for the country. Ratings agency S&P last night raised Greece's sovereign rating to B-. With a stable outlook, the rating had been in selective default. Let's get to IG Index and Brenda Kelly. Morning to you, Brenda.
Good morning.
Let's start. Actually, I just touched on Greece. Let's get that out of the way first. Were you surprised by that?
Well, somewhat. It kind of goes to show that the markets do have a lack of memory, but I think in some ways the ratings agencies have become a little bit irrelevant at the moment, given that a very few people would hold long-term Greek debt at the moment, and that has been the issue over the last few years, where a lot of the banks have been trying to close their exposure to Greek debt. So it could be a little bit late in the day coming, and as you've started to show off with the unrest in Greece, that still continues, and I would expect that to impact Greece's GDP and growth outlook. So in terms of stability in their financial sector, it will more than likely come from a stability in their actual domestic sector as well, and that's not happening anytime soon.
All right. Just looking at UBS, shares off about 0.4%, so not a great deal of movement. Pretty much priced in, it seems. This, right?
It looks like that, all right. I think in some ways they were the first bank to actually say that they're being investigated for these LIBOR investigations when the fallout came from Barclays. So I think in some ways it did manage the expectations for this LIBOR problem. But I do think in some ways the fact that they were managing to change Japanese LIBOR rates as well is a little bit more damning. And I think in terms of the reputation for the bank, which was deemed a very safe bank, being Swiss and the second biggest bank in the UK, is probably quite problematic for it going forward in terms of investor portfolio interest.
Do you buy banks at the beginning of next year, given what's happened to them, given the price now?
There were many who say that we're reaching a bottom in the housing market, but I think unless we see some proper legalese come into play, where the banks have to stick to the audits and have proper audits taking place on the banks by an independent adjudicator, I would be slightly wary about investing in the banks for the time being.
Quick word on the fiscal cliff. I mean, it amazes me when I look at the S&P and the Dow and some of these markets, this upward trend they seem to be caught in, despite no real positive news coming out of the US.
I think no news seems to be good news for equity markets at the moment, and we're seeing that in terms of like the gold being sold off. There's a certain amount of positivity in the markets on the basis that there hasn't been anything damning coming out of the US. So I think in some ways what we'll see is a bit of a sticking plaster towards the end of the year, which will push out the real issues and probably till the first quarter of 2013. And that might actually see the equity markets continue to rally into the early part of 2013. But unless they actually come up with a proper decision in relation to the deficit, that is when you're going to see the ratings agencies come in, and that is when you're probably going to see a massive sell-off in the equity markets on the basis of that. OK,
Brenda, thanks a lot. South Korea goes to the polls today in an election that has echoes of the past. Reuters' Tara Joseph joins me from Hong Kong. Tara, the top two candidates have history, you might say.
That's right, Axel, but it's not for making music videos or pop music videos together. Conservative Park Geun-hye is daughter of the country's former military ruler. She has a thin lead in the polls right now. Her challenger, Moon Jae-in, was jailed by her father for his political activism. Now, Moon has promised to perform global pop sensation Psy Gangnam Style dance if turnout hits 77%, because that would bring the election in his favor.
Is it likely to hit 77%? Are we going to see this dance?
Well, turnout has actually been very high, even though it's freezing cold in South Korea today. And the spread is actually thinner than people had thought. So there is a chance of that happening. But whoever wins, they're going to have to deal with a lot of problems in South Korea. We've got the hostile North, and also we have a slowing domestic economy. And while outwardly people tend to think of South Korea as home to successful companies like Samsung and Hyundai, South Korean society has become steadily more unequal and not a very happy place to be right now. Not people doing Gangnam Style dances in the streets all day, that's for sure.
All right. Just on a more serious note, some pretty horrible trade data out of Japan. We've talked a lot about Japan this week. What is this going to do for the BOJ deliberations?
Well, the pressure is on for the Bank of Japan to cut rates and do more to stimulate the economy already. The data out today, which is the sixth straight monthly decline in trade, just adds to the pressure. But we have a huge, overwhelming majority of economists who do expect the BOJ to do something when results of their meeting come out tomorrow. I think it's 11 out of 15 economists polled expect some sort of monetary stimulus. So it'll be interesting to see what they say about it, though.
Okay, thanks a lot, Tara. Top world news story on Reuters this morning. US gun makers facing pressure from some investors in the wake of Friday's mass shooting. Private equity firm Cerberus Capital says it's selling Freedom Group. That's the manufacturing of the AR-15 assault rifle used in the shootings that left 26 staff and children dead. New York's state retirement fund also reviewing its investment in gun manufacturers. That is it for this morning. I'll leave you with our picture of the day, which features a royal interloper. The Queen attended, of course, a cabinet meeting in London yesterday. But judging by this Reuters photo, she found it less amusing than the gathered politicians. I'm Axel Threlfall. This is Reuters.